Midwestern Council Alcoholism, Northwest Regional Mental Health, Regional Hospice, RSVP, TBICO, and We Care. ARC. Reverend P.J. Leopold complained that she was surprised that they were denied the 22% increase that they had requested. She said this funding has not had an increase in years. Mr. Chinese asked if there had been a reduction in any of the grants for this program. And Reverend Leopold said no, this was the only reduction. Mr. Cavo asked about the full-page News Times ad that they ran about the ICE partnership. Reverend Leopold said it cost $2,300 and it was paid for by an anonymous gift. She added that none of the city funding goes toward their work with immigrants. Finance Director David St. Hilaire said due to the budgetary constraints, most of the grant agencies were kept as the same level of funding last year. The mayor didn't want to cut their funding, so they kept them all at the same level as the previous year. Mr. St. Hilaire oh, thank you. Good? Yes? Oh. Explained that the city department budgets were cut rather than take funding away from these agencies, so there was no way that they could accommodate the request for increases. Community Action Committee. Linda Armstrong said food and fuel are the two key words. Normally they serve 11 families. Right now they're at 3 times that amount. Connecticut Institute for Communities. Jim Maloney, president, said there are 6 key points they want to do, but the bulk of the funds will be used to maintain the Harambe program. He said that they are hoping that this additional funding will help them get more money from other sources, such as grants and private foundations. Mr. Chinese suggested they ask Wisconsin University to donate the use of the Armory building, which would reduce their expenses significantly by eliminating the rent. Mr. Maloney said the state will not do that, but a deal has been made for the city to buy the building once the new arts building is finished at Wisconsin. War Memorial. Mr. Riley said the War Memorial is experiencing difficult times. They just don't have the membership to cover their expenses. He suggested that they merge the funding for the YMCA with this and split it down the middle. Mr. Chinese said they should wait until they get to the YMCA to discuss this idea. Mr. Chinese said it seems that many of the agencies serve the same purpose and asked Mr. St. Hilaire how they can prevent the duplication of services. Mr. St. Hilaire said it may seem like there is some overlap on a lot of these programs, but they are distinctly different. He said the mayor insisted on keeping everything the same as last year. Any programs that were increased were done so because they were joined with another program. 6 more pages, don't feel bad. Hispanic Center of Greater Danbury. Executive Director Eva Colon thanked them for changing the amount of their grant. She said she has worked hard to get the agency back on track by finding out what the needs of the community are and providing programs to satisfy them. She added that they recognize the need to take accountability for what they do. Mr. Chinese said last year their funding was taken away because of problems with the previous management. He said there is currently an ad hoc committee looking into reinstating last year's funds. Mr. Cavo asked about the full-page News Times ad they ran about the ICE partnership. Ms. Colon said it cost $1,196 and it was made by a private donation. Barbara Roos, secretary to the board of directors, then said Ms. Cologne came on board. The face of the agency has totally changed. Boughton Street YMCA. Mr. Cabo asked Mr. St. Hilaire to explain the change in the funding. Mr. St. Hilaire said a few years ago the city stepped in when the YMCA needed major repairs. That funding was maintained to help them do the improvements, but now since they are making money, it's time to cut back. These extra funds were split between the Connecticut Institute for Communities and the Scott Phantom Museum, which will no longer be a grant agency. The museum will be run by an authority which is funded in a different manner than the grants are. Mr. Riley again suggested merging the proposed funding for the War Memorial and the YMCA and splitting the dollar amount down the middle. Mr. St. Hilaire said the War Memorial is in a unique situation because it is in danger of closing. He said these two agencies need to work this out between themselves. Mr. Riley said the War Memorial was built to honor the dead and service the living, but they are in a bad way and Danbury cannot afford to lose that program. Mr. St. Hilaire said the council needs to consider who the money will help more. Volunteer Center. Patty Cohen Heck, I hope I pronounced it right, president, stated that they have been in existence since 1974 and their allocation amount from the city has not increased since then. Every group in Danbury looks to them to provide volunteers, but they need additional funding at least to bring them up to every other non-profit in the community. This past year, they went to the other towns for funding. They received $20,000 gift from the mayor, and the rest of the money they got from sweat equity.
It was from the mayor's ball there, Mr. Riley. I just want to be clear. I don't have I don't give out $20,000 to everybody that walks in the door. So.
Okay. Mr. Riley thanked everyone for coming and said that they would consider all that had been said. At this point, Valerie Ventura Sadi of Family and Children Aid Harmony House came forward and asked to speak. She said due to restructuring, they had missed the deadline and they were hoping that the council would still consider the funding with them at the same amount in the past year. Mr. St. Hilaire said the reality is that this budget is very tight and the board needs to focus on the essentials. Mr. Cabo said even in better times, these agencies had to take cuts. He added that the taxpayers have let the council know that they want the money to stop going out. He encouraged all the agencies to go out and find other sources of funding in addition to the city. Mr. Riley reiterated his suggestion about merging the funds from the War Memorial and the YMCA. He also mentioned the reinstatement of the 7-8 funds for the Hispanic Center. He also suggested giving the Volunteer Center additional funding. Mr. Cabo made a motion to recommend the budget as presented by the mayor with the exception of the merging the funding for the YMCA and the War Memorial and splitting it evenly between the two agencies. He added that he does not think they should do anything regarding the reinstatement of the Hispanic Center's 7-8 funding, and they should let the ad hoc committee handle that issue. This motion was seconded by Mr. Seabury. Mr. Knapp asked about the ad hoc committee, and Mr. Cabo said it was formed to find out the specific objectives of the agency, and that information has not been provided. He added that they deserve to have that information before deciding on giving money back. Mr. Cabo said he had not heard from the mayor on this issue. Mr. Chinese made a motion to merge the funding for the YMCA and War Memorial, but reduce the amount they should get, that they each get, and use the difference for some of the other agencies, including Family and Children's Services. Mr. Cavo said he appreciates the suggestion, but finds it difficult to support it. He said his suggestion about the YMCA War Memorial situation was because they are similar agencies that do the same thing. He then said he would prefer to leave everyone flat funded as proposed by the mayor. Mr. Seabury said he agreed with Mr. Cavo. Mr. Chinese withdrew his motion to amend Mr. Cavo's motion since there was no second. Chairman Riley called for a vote